Chief Justice of India N.V. Ramana has called for inclusion of more women in judiciary. Speaking at a virtual event to celebrate the International Day of Women Judges, the CJI pointed out that the government is sitting on appointment of 20 women as High Court judges. CJI also proposed reservation for girls in legal education, pointing out that only 15% of the country's advocates are women. CJI also added that patriarchy is the reason behind underrepresentation of women in judiciary. Let me go across to my colleague Meenakshi Bhanja. Meenakshi, very, very important observations being made by the CJI there. Can you take us through the main highlights?
Well, yes, absolutely. You see, this is not the first time the Honorable Chief Justice of India has underlined this particular concern. He has done so on an earlier occasion judicially as well. From the bench itself, he has also made earlier observations. Yesterday, like you rightly mentioned, was at an event where he was attending, where he made his concerns with regards to this issue known more clearly. And like you rightly mentioned, he bemoaned as to how deep-set patriarchy, which continues to be ingrained, is the primary reason for underrepresentation of women, particularly in judiciary. And not just that, he said that India as a country is still far away from ensuring at least 50% representation of women. And he attributed this to a deeply ingrained patriarchy in our society. He went ahead and he made a quote, which I'll just quote here for the sake of our viewers. He said, and I quote, "There are numerous factors behind the underrepresentation of women in judiciary. The primary reason is the deeply ingrained patriarchy in our society. Women often have to face a hostile atmosphere within the courtrooms, harassment, lack of respect from members of the bench, the silencing of their opinions are some of the other traumatic experiences often recounted by many women lawyers. Resultantly, out of nearly 17 lakh advocates registered in the country, only 15% are women," unquote. So some grave words coming from the Honorable Chief Justice of India about the climate that continues unabated for women and greater participation, which blocks the greater participation in this country. And like you were rightly mentioning at the opening, he also expressed concern as to how there are several women who have been recommended for judgeship by the Supreme Court Collegium, and some of those recommendations have yet to gain muster of the government.
Right, Meenakshi, thank you so much for joining us with that. I'm also joined on the broadcast by Kamini Jaiswal, advocate. Ma'am, thank you so much for speaking to us here on Mirror Now. But do you, first of all, what's your first reaction to these comments and observations being made by the Chief Justice, where he has, of course, called for more inclusivity for women in the judiciary, but also very significantly pointing out that the government is sitting on the appointment of 20 women as High Court judges. Given your long legal career, is this something that you've experienced or witnessed earlier as well?
Well, I have seen it over the years. Things have improved a bit, but it's a very well Chief Justice, and coming from him, he should take it forward also. This should be followed up by pressurizing the government into clearing those files or whatever, at least working on those files. That also shows the mindset, of our executive. Somehow, I don't understand why, but they fear competition. They fear competition from the women, and I do not understand why this is so, because even if it is a small percentage of women lawyers who are there are many, many of them who are very competent and actually have reached where they have after a very arduous and long struggle, facing a lot of uphill tasks, prejudices that are there. So it should gain recognition. And of course, with a word of caution that I don't think the merit should be compromised in any way. Because we need good judges more than, men judges or women judges. We shouldn't identify them on gender.
Have things improved in the recent times, ma'am? Because this is not the first time, as my colleague Meenakshi Bhanja was also pointing out, that the Chief Justice himself has actually made these observations and tried to, ensure that there's more women being involved in the judiciary. We've also seen the fact that the first, the woman judge being appointed in the Supreme Court, which also took place very recently. So do you feel that the situation is improving over times? I mean, as you said, that you've seen it in the past, but have things changed?
Many more women are coming forward. Earlier, if you attended a law college, in a class of 50, there will be 2 women. And now, at least, there's a representation at that level. So obviously, if there are more people coming out and joining the profession, but women also should, make themselves serious about it. It should not be just a stepping stone or a, lounge waiting to get married and then leave off. That also should not be there. So it has to be both ways. And things have improved because obviously with more women in the court and more women in the corridors of the court, the whole atmosphere is a little different.
Right. Kamini Jaiswal, their advocate, thank you so much for joining us on this story that we are tracking very closely, and this important observations and key observations being made by the CJI.